Top 5 amazing people with hypertrichosis. Bobs. Pixies. Long and sleek. Short and spiky. Hair is something most of us have. Even those who are bald usually had locks upon their head at some point in time. For most, the daily ritual of washing, drying, and styling their hair is somewhat mundane. But what if your hair wasn't just on your head and scattered about your body in various amounts? What if you were completely covered with it? What if your face, whether male or female, displayed inches upon inches of thick hair? This seems unbelievable, but it actually happens. Though the condition is quite rare, there are those around the world who suffer from this extreme excess of hair, known as hypertrichosis. Though living with so much hair might seem unbearable, people with hypertrichosis have been thriving and making a name for themselves for years. Although some were taken advantage of, many became famous and even had families of their own. Interesting is the life of those who are hairy. Number 5. Alice Doherty. Known as the Minnesota Woolly Girl, Alice Doherty has earned the distinction in history as being the only recorded person with hypertrichosis born in the United States. Alice was born to average parents in March 1887. She had 2 other siblings who showed no signs of hypertrichosis. Alice's parents loved her but realized quickly that although she was just a normal girl on the inside, her hairy outside traits were something that people would gladly pay to see. At the age of 2, her parents started exhibiting her in their local community to earn money. The people who visited Alice commented on her spirit as well as her strange looks, noting that Alice was as frolicsome as a kitten. As she grew, so did Alice's woolly mane. By 5 years of age, her facial hair, which completely covered her face, was more than 13 centimeters long. Her golden facial locks delighted people for many years, and she is still remembered as America's hairy beauty. Number 4. Barbara Vanbeck. Hypertrichosis has been known for centuries, and one of the most well-documented cases was that of Barbara Vanbeck, the hairy maid. Barbara Ursularin was born in Germany in 1629. She was the only person in her family to exhibit hypertrichosis. Though this was long before the Victorian explosion of freak shows, Barbara's family realized their daughter was different and could make money off her. At a mere 3 years of age, Barbara's family started putting her into traveling shows to display her. Though many saw poor, hairy Barbara as a monster, she was far from it. Barbara could speak multiple languages and was an exceptionally skilled harpsichord player. Nevertheless, most of the audience didn't come to see her exquisite talents. They came to see her as an oddity to be gawked at. Her exploitation in some instances even bordered on prostitution. A man has known Ely Brackenhofer saw Barbara in Paris once and asked her to undress in front of him. Although there is no documentation to show that anything transpired, Barbara was encouraged to disrobe at any request because it brought in the big money. As Barbara aged, she married Johann Michael Vanbeck and had a child. It seemed as though Barbara's life was taking a turn. She was going to get away from the limelight. However, she would still be exhibited by her spouse. In 1660, Barbara was touring France with her husband, but instead of claiming Barbara as his beloved wife, he said that he was her agent and actually went to the bailiff of the town of Beauvais to ask for permission to show off his strange prodigy of nature. Barbara was not loved as a person by her husband, but was loved as a source of income. Due to her extreme hair growth, Barbara was examined by many doctors of her time. Many saw her as an average woman afflicted with a horrible condition, but some were so much harsher. One doctor, Holger Jakobsen, actually examined poor Barbara and decided that the only way she could look as she did was because she was the product of mating between a human and an ape. Despite her time in the limelight, Barbara's story in history ended abruptly. In 1668, after a visit to London, she disappears from all records. Given that she was a well-documented, well-known person at the time, people are still in disbelief that Barbara simply vanished. Wherever Barbara went, let us hope she had a quiet, peaceful end to her life, not as an oddity, but as a talented, spirited woman. Number 3. Julia Pastrana. Though many tales of those with hypertrichosis do have their pleasant aspects, some are not so lucky. So goes the life story of Julia Pastrana. Julia was born in the mountains of Mexico in 1834, and from the beginning, her parents knew there was something very different with their child. Upon her birth, Julia emerged with hair covering her entire body, except the soles of her feet and the palms of her hands. Along with the excess hair, Julia also had other curious characteristics, including abnormally thick lips, an oversized jaw, a prominent brow with thick, oversized eyebrows, an abnormally large nose, and irregularly shaped teeth. Study of Julia led researchers to a diagnosis based on her strange attributes. Julia suffered from an incredibly rare condition known as acromegaloid hypertrichosis. Although she had these strange attributes, Julia was healthy and displayed poise and a plump 135 centimeter stature. Her poise got her hired by the governor of Sinaloa. She was a servant girl in his household. Domestic life came to a quick halt for Julia in 1854, when she was discovered by M. Rates, who whisked her off to New York to be exhibited for her unique features. Though the public was greatly intrigued by Julia, doctors also were showing her great attention. Dr. Alexander Mart in New York insultingly said that Julia was a hybrid of a human and an orangutan. This was just the start of the slander and mistreatment of poor Julia Pastrana. A new promoter and a new set of doctors in Cleveland exploited her for money and claimed that she wasn't human, but a distinct species. In London, another new promoter, Theodore Lent, used Julia again for display, but due to his amazing skills at selling the odd, he took the most from Julia. Lent cast her in plays that stigmatized her as an unlovable monster due to her looks. When people asked how Julia felt during press releases, Lent assured the readers that Julia was happy and didn't covet wealth, but Lent sure did. As people grew to love Julia more, Lent was afraid that his money source would get away from him, so in an attempt to keep Julia as a cash cow, he married her and then had her locked in his apartment, where she wasn't allowed to leave except under cover of darkness. He let doctors examine her anytime they wished, and during one examination, it was discovered that Julia was pregnant. In March 1860, Julia gave birth to a hairy child, which lived only 35 hours. Julia herself succumbed to postpartum complications a mere 5 days later. After her death, though, Julia's woes didn't end. Because she was such a curiosity, and her husband was always after an easy dollar, he had the bodies of both his wife and his dead son embalmed. The tedious 6-month process resulted in near-perfect mummification. For the next 20 years, he displayed their bodies in various locations, milking Julia for money even in death. After Lent's own death, Julia's mummified body switched hands a plethora of times, never staying in one place long. Her remains were only finally returned to Sinaloa for burial in 2013. Number 2. Priscilla Roman. So many people with hypertrichosis had a hard life. From ridicule to exploitation, many led lives that were anything but serene. However, one hairy heroine had a life that was nearly picturesque, even though she was covered with hair. Priscilla Roman, known as the Monkey Girl on stage, was born in Puerto Rico in 1911. She was born with hypertrichosis and also bore 2 rows of teeth. Although she was an oddity to regular folks and doctors alike, Priscilla's father was unsure what to do to best care for his daughter. So to ensure that he could do the best for her, he took Priscilla and his wife to New York in hopes of offering her help for her affliction. During his time in New York, he decided that perhaps his daughter could make money. He wasn't greedy, he just realized that with her appearance, Priscilla would face hardships, and this was a way to ensure that she had money. With the help of promoter Carl L. Lawther, who hired the girl on the spot, Priscilla became a successful sideshow entity at a young age. After Priscilla's mom went back to Puerto Rico, Lawther hired help from Priscilla's father to ensure that Priscilla had the best care and education he could offer her. Sadly, Priscilla's father was killed in Gainesville soon after hooking up with Lawther. But loving her as his own child, Lawther took Priscilla under his wing. He adopted her as his own, gave her everything she wanted, educated her, and even took offense when someone said something rude or patronizing to his newly adopted daughter. Priscilla had a happy life growing up with Lawther and the sideshow circuit. It became even more incredible when she met Emmett Bejarano. Emmett Bejarano was known as the alligator-skinned man, as he suffered from ichthyosis. But the hair and the scaly skin didn't stop love from blossoming. Priscilla and Emmett fell madly in love. The two eloped in 1938 and had a daughter. Sadly, she was taken by pneumonia at a mere 4 months old. After leaving Lawther and performing with Ripley's Believe It or Not for many years, Priscilla and Emmett bought an acre of land and settled in the carnival community of Gibsonton, Florida. In 1960, the dynamic couple adopted a young son, Tony, and named their homestead PET, Priscilla, Emmett, Tony. 4 years, they ran their own carnival show and traveled around a bit before finally retiring from performance and roadshows for good in the 1980s. They starred in many movies, made TV appearances, and gave many interviews discussing their lives as sideshow icons. The two retired to their home in Gibsonton permanently during the 1990s and remained madly in love, even with the passing of Emmett in 1995. Priscilla, ever the amazing woman, continued her TV appearances, though, after Emmett's death, she remained clean-shaven, as an act of mourning. This remarkable lady passed quietly in her sleep in 2001 at 89 years old. Number 1. Lionel the Lion-Faced Man. Stefan Bobrovsky, also known as Lionel the Lion-Faced Man, was born in 1890 in Poland. Upon birth, it was discovered that Stefan was covered in 2.5 centimeters hair over the entirety of his body. His mother, seeing her son as an abomination, chose to give him to a German promoter, Sedlmayr, when poor Stefan was only 4 years of age. Lucky for Stefan, Sedlmayr had a soft spot for the young, hairy boy and sent him to a German boarding school so that he could receive a proper education. Beyond school, though, Stefan loved performing. Sedlmayr invented a wild story for Stefan's hairy condition, saying his mother witnessed his father being eaten by a circus lion, and alas, her poor son was imprinted with the hair and ferocity of a lion. However, nothing could be farther from the truth. Stefan loved performing and was an accomplished showman. He toured around the US for most of his life, delighting curious audiences everywhere. He performed gymnastics, and to quell any fears the audience had of his lion-like appearance, Stefan would talk in a gentle voice, showing off the multiple languages he spoke with ease. He loved entertaining so much that he was horrified when a fire caused him to fear losing his hair. In 1904, he was staying at a hotel in New York when it caught fire. Terrified that he would be set alight and lose his wild manner, Stefan was one of the first people out of the building, both protecting himself and his hair. He was afraid that if he lost all of his hair, he'd be just a regular man with no career as a sideshow oddity. Stefan moved to Germany in 1907 to perform there, and then back to the United States to perform again, until 1928. Finally, ready to retire, Stefan moved again to Germany, this time for good. In 1932, at the young age of 41, Stefan suffered a heart attack which claimed his life. Seems straightforward, right? However, there are sources that say that a heart attack wasn't the cause of this great showman's death. Some say he died of other causes in Italy, while others even claim that he died in a Nazi concentration camp. No matter what Stefan succumbed to, we lost a great figure in sideshow history the day Stefan, the lion-faced man, died.